Today we're going to be reviewing 4 different swords. 3 are the same model. One I've customized, and then a $260 custom sword that I had made for my girlfriend, and then a bonus 5th melee weapon. First off, my girlfriend's sword. This is the $260 production sword, customized. Had her name engraved on it. It's a Sokojikura T10 tool steel, differentially clay hardened. Some mixed reviews on this particular model. The issues that I had with it, straight out of the box, it had a little bit of fraying on the Ito wrap right at the Mukugi pin, first Mukugi pin. The wrap is decently tight for a sword in this price point, but it's not. It doesn't wow. It doesn't wow you. The end cap is, I'm not sure if you can tell, the end cap is not even, and it is glued on, so it's permanently canted. I do like the style and decorations. They're just not super well done. They're not extremely crisp. This is their Sokojikura Hanya themed Joker katana. The black ray skin, pretty small nodes, but it is genuine ray skin. It feels like the ray skin panels, though, you can actually see where the panels end and the wood showing through. So there are a couple of little nitpicky things with this. The other major issue that I had with it was the differential hardening. One of the reviews that I saw had the hardening too hard when they hit a piece of wood that shouldn't have damaged the blade the way it did. It took a decent sized notch out of it, which indicates that the differential clay hardening was a little bit too extreme on the cutting edge. This one is actually too soft. You can still see the hamon, but it's not very bright. It's a decent polish. It has been used, so it's not in mint condition anymore. It was a pretty decent, close to mirror polish. The Kasaki had a few rough spots on the grind, but all in all, it was a pretty decent sword for the price. Wrong unit. All right, 992 grams. The Sokojira production sword. Now, for the first one that I unboxed, this is the Forged Warrior Battle Katana. I'm not sure why they even put this wrap here, because there's nothing holding it on. It just slides up and down. You can't put it in a belt. They do have a pretty decent saya scabbard for it. Depending on each model is just a little bit different, but depending on the model, they're pretty well fit. It actually, just like the $300 production sword, you can hold it upside down, shake it pretty vigorously, and it's not going to go anywhere. At least this one. The other one's a little looser. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. The blade itself is actually much better than the original example that I bought from Forged Warrior. The first battle katana that I bought from them had some pretty serious rippling along the flats of the blade. And it actually had a couple of issues with the edge itself, and the grind lines on that kind of wandered a little bit. And then the Kasaki, there is no Kasaki grind line difference there. It's just one continuous smooth transition to the tip, which I'm fine with in a sort of this price point. If you buy it at the right time, you can get this for around 45. If you're lucky, about 40 bucks shipped to you. This one with tax, shipping, and handling, it was $47. So this is the cheapest usable production katana that I've ever seen on the market. It is very durable. It is advertised as spring steel. I don't know if it is. One site I actually saw that it was quoted as 1065 with a spring temper on it, which would make sense. But one thing that I'm getting from this is it does rust, but it does have a certain amount of corrosion resistance, which a lot of spring steels will have. And I'm putting about a 25, 30 degree bend on this, springing right back to true. What's really getting me about these is the improvement. The first one I bought was 2 years ago. This one, they've lightened it up significantly. There's a distal taper. The grind lines are much better. The balance point has been pushed significantly back. The problems with the original are still there. The Suba, it just slides up into and sits into a notch at the base of the blade, and it's literally only held in by the hand wrap, which is tighter than it was on the original, but not super impressive. It does hold together because of how it's wrapped and terminated. It feels better than the first one. It's still got the foam hand scales on the inside, so I feel like if you hit something hard, it will want to turn and mess up your edge alignment if you hit something with a little bit of resistance in the target. But they've improved this thing quite a bit. Another thing that really impressed me with these newer versions is the weight. The weight on this one is 1,084 grams. The weight on the next one is 1,100. So 1,100, about 16 grams difference in weight. But that 16 grams of difference translates significantly in how they feel in the hand. The one that weighs 1,100 grams feels significantly heavier when you're moving it around, especially towards the tip. This would make it a better, more authoritative cutter. It also seems to have a bit wider blade. I don't know how well you can tell in the camera there, but the blade seems to be just a bit wider. The distal taper on it, it does have one, but let's see if I can get these things even. the distal taper on the one on my right here is actually much stronger than the one on the left. The one that weighs 1,100 grams does have a, I'd say about a millimeter and a half distal taper, but the 1,084 gram one has a good a little, maybe a hair over 2 millimeters of distal taper. The Kasaki's on each one. The one on the right is finer of a tip, and it actually has a bit of asymmetry on the grind. You can tell from the back a little bit better. The left side of the blade has a lower shoulder than the right side. Take care of that. This one, Kasaki, looks much more even on it, but the distal taper goes straight through to the tip. This, like some types of katana, actually flares back out at the grind lines towards the tip. So right there at the tip of the diamond, it actually widens back out slightly. Well less than half a millimeter. If I'm not mistaken, one of these scabbards fits just a little bit better. Yeah, this one slides out a little bit and holds. If you give it just a little shake, it'll slide the rest of the way out. But this isn't quite as snug as the first sword. So there's going to be a little bit of variation in how well the saya and the katana blade body actually fit together. This is the original battle katana that I bought from them. It was literally just a roll of the dice. I saw some impressive things that they had posted, and I wanted to see if it was true. Is it spring steel? Does it actually like retain an edge when coming into contact with anything harder than plastic? It does. It is an incredible buy. Every other sword that I've bought in that price range to review, all the way up to around $120, usually made out of 1045 steel with a very basic temper and no spring to it at all. So if you bend it, it stays bent. There's no forgiveness in any cut. These things, you can do a bad cut and it doesn't care. It'll take a licking, keep on ticking. I have increased the weight of this thing by about 40 grams with the new handle construction, but I've also taken about 15 grams off the blade itself. This blade was much thicker, and I've basically completely reprofiled the cutting edge. It has a Kasaki now. I'm not sure how well you can see that in this lighting. It actually has like a true geometry. I took as much as I could, all of the ripples and the flats of the blade. I took a significant amount of material off the spine. So altogether, I actually trimmed the blade down by about 15 grams, but I increased the total weight of the sword by about 25 grams. So this one's 1,200 grams now, minus 25 grams. It's still well heavier than the last two versions. That was one of the main complaints, it was too heavy and it was too tip heavy. They fixed both of those, but both the balance and the edge geometry, the flats. They've cleaned it up significantly, which is a surprise for anything close to $50. The last thing, Luna, get out of here. Luna, go on. Go on. Go on. Dude. And last but not least, thank you, is the Forged Warrior Battle Spear. I think it's called the Battle Spear. It's more like a mix between a glaive and a naginata, which is actually the reason I bought it. I'm going to turn this thing into a naginata. I noticed that it had the same construction as the Forged Warrior Xiphos, which I also have. I've taken the hand scales off of it, and it's held together. This probably has a third pin in it, but the Xiphos has two, I found out, wooden pins, and then it's wrapped. And this is faux leather, but it's really good, tough, fake leather. The Xiphos is 4.9 pounds. This glaive, spear, naginata, whatever you want to call it, is 2,641 grams, which translates to roughly 5.82 pounds. So this thing is a beast. It is relatively short for a polearm. It's just barely taller than the swords, like a couple of inches. The swords are advertised at 27.5 inches. All three are within a 1/4 inch of 28, so it's pretty spot on. This thing is insanely heavy, but it has a pretty good balance point. Unlike their Chinese war sword, which is actually past the blade, this thing is, even though it's heavy, it is pretty easy to handle. It definitely needs some more length though. So I'm going to take the hand scales off. I'm going to make a new handle for it and make it an actual naginata. I'm going to put a hand guard, tsuba at the top to make it actually recognizable as a naginata. But just taking these two hand scales off is probably going to decrease the weight to around 2.5 pounds, maybe a little less. Let's try it like this. I can feel it flex, but I can't really see it flex. It's not bending though. And test it with the cuts. The other things that I noticed about this particular piece, the tip, the grind on the tip actually has 1, 2, 3 edge bevels. It looks cool. It's got that little tactical Tonto tip look to it. You can actually see there's, from the flat of the blade, there's a grind here, there's a grind here, and then there's one final grind at the edge. This has a secondary edge bevel as well, but it is very sharp. So yeah, the total price of both of those swords and the spear, including taxes and shipping and handling, is $164. So kind of impressive you can get this amount of metal, tempered steel, for $164. So this part of the blade is sharp enough to cut paper. And then right about here, about 2.5 inches of the blade is pretty dull. Like I can apply pressure and rub right there. If I did that right there, I wouldn't have an end of my finger. that sharp. This is not. This at the tip is sharp-ish. So it's workable sharp from here down and here down, or here up and here down. So there's about a 2-inch spot where the blade is actually significantly duller than the rest of it, but it should be sharp enough to cut soft to medium targets without much of an issue. So we're going to test that. Oh. Yeah, hit the top of the wood. Right there. Come here. Nothing. No deflection.
All right. Okay.
And that's the oldest one too. Good accuracy. Not much of a difference. A little bit rougher. I think it has more to do with trying to get it accelerated and stopped. I think you had the same kind of issue as you were going to swing it. It kind of felt a little unstable, slowing it down and stopping it with the squishy hand guard. Ooh. Where'd it go?
I was trying to. There we go.
Ooh. Still nothing.